Listen man, what is your current purpose in life? Not just a goal, but a purpose, a mission that you're trying to achieve. If I strip away every single distraction and every single stimulation in your life, then what's left in you? What is your true passion? Because ideas like purpose and passion have a very blurred line between them. And today I will tell you a story about how both of these ideals shape a man, a warrior. There was a space marine who made a vow not to protect, not to survive, but to hunt. To seek out every enemy champion and slay them in melee combat. Every warlord, every enemy worth killing, and challenge them, all of them, again, and again. His name was Sigismund, and by the end of his life, he had become something that his own father couldn't recognize. Origin, Terra, discipline, and Rogaldorn. Sigismund was born on Terra, and he wasn't raised in chaos, he was raised by discipline alone. He was recruited into Imperial Fists, the Legion of Rogaldorn, a Primarch defined by logic, control, and absolute precision. And Sigismund at first was perfect. He was calm, he was loyal, he was focused, everything a son of Dorn should be. But beneath that discipline, something else was growing. It wasn't chaos, not anger, but something that was far more dangerous. It was obsession, brotherhood, the oath with Karn. Before the galaxy burned, before brother fought brother, Sigismund fought alongside warriors who would one day become his enemies. And amongst them was Karn, captain of World Eater's 8th Assault Company, a warrior of violence, yes, but also of honor, of nobility. They both fought in the same campaigns, and both of them bled on the same battlefields. And between the wars, they met in Void, on World Eater's warships. They fought in honor bouts between each other, not to kill, but to test themselves, to grow stronger, to understand each other better, deeply. And that's why they called each other the Oath Brothers. The chain. The World Eaters had a ritual. Before every battle, they would chain their weapons to their arms. A simple idea, but absolute in its meaning. They could not stop fighting. They could not retreat from the battlefield. They could not disarm themselves. They could not escape. Once the chain was locked, the war would not end until the objective was complete. And Sigismund adopted this, not as a necessity, but as a choice. Because long before he became what he would become, Sigismund made a choice. He had already chosen total commitment. The first duel. Then came the Horus Heresy, and brothers turned on brothers. The galaxy was torn apart between humanity's warriors. And eventually, Sigismund and Karn fought each other once again. But this time, not as brothers, but as enemies. The first duel was brutal. It was fast, it was violent, it was alive. Karn fought with his total fury and passion for combat. Sigismund fought with precision and discipline. But in that moment, Karn was stronger. Sigismund was defeated by Karn, saved only by the intervention of loyalist forces. And this matters because here, Sigismund was still human. He was still fallible, still incomplete. He had still remained a human after all of the changes in his body to become an Astartes, an Imperium's warrior. The transformation. Faith consumes the man. As the war dragged on, Sigismund changed. His belief in the Emperor deepened with the help of the Remembrance Ephrata. His purpose became narrowed. His identity simplified. He became the Emperor's champion. He was chosen, set apart from every other Astartes. It was said that he was given the Black Sword by the Emperor himself, not just as a weapon, but a symbol of duty, of faith, of inevitability. From that moment forward, Sigismund no longer fought because he chose to. He fought because nothing else left. Siege of Terra, the Hunter. During Siege of Terra, Sigismund made his vow real. He hunted all of them. He hunted enemy champions, warlords, enemy commanders, and leaders. He sought them out relentlessly, not for glory, not for recognition, but because in his mind it was his only function. This is where something breaks, because he stops being a warrior and becomes entirely something else. A process, a weapon, a certainty. Second duel, the horror of perfection. And then he met Harn yet again, on Terra, on the old Earth. But this time, everything was different. Harn had the butcher's nails inside of his brain, and he was driven by unrelenting rage, by unrelenting slaughter. It was violence forced into his very thoughts. But still, Harn was human, even though he was started to change with the dark powers. He still felt, he still raged at the war. He fought with his true passion as a warrior. He wanted the fight with Sigismund, but Sigismund, he felt nothing. He had no anger, no pride, no hatred. He had no humanity. He fought Karn like a ghost, with cold, silent precision, perfection. But Karn attacked Sigismund relentlessly, faster, harder, more violently, trying to break Sigismund, trying to provoke him, trying to get anything out of Sigismund. But every strike meant the same thing, which was nothing. Perfect defense, perfect timing, no human reaction. It was just inevitability. So Karn became frustrated, not because he was losing, but because there was no fight. There was no exchange, no connection. It was only an execution. And in that moment of carnage, Karn realized something far more terrifying. He, driven mad by rage, by butcher's nails inside of his brain, he was more human than Sigismund. Because Sigismund had nothing left in him. He had no doubt, no fear, no hesitation, no soul. He had only purpose. And that's when Karn understood what Imperium had become. The Imperium's warriors are not driven by its ideals. They are just but a tools of faith, unfeeling, unrelenting, and empty. And at the end, Sigismund struck him down, mortally wounding his former battle brother, not in anger and not in triumph, but as an inevitability, as a function. The long war, no end, no life. After the heresy, Sigismund did not stop. He became the first High Marshal of the new Black Templars chapter, and he continued the crusade. And in the Scouring, he was one of the most important figures to purge all of the heretics and traitors, driving them back into the eye of terror. And he continued the crusades endlessly, without any rest, without any peace, without any identity outside of war. He became exactly what he chose to be. The final duel, Abaddon. In the end, Sigismund faced Abaddon the Despoiler, the new war master of new chaos forces. And Sigismund was old, he was worn, he was slower after 1000 years of service. But still, he fought Abaddon with his sword. Because stopping was never an option in the first place. And the duel was brutal between them. And this time, Sigismund lost to Abaddon. Sigismund drove his black sword into Abaddon's armor. But in this time, he was exposed. Abaddon halved Sigismund with his claw. But even in death, Sigismund did not yield. His final words to Abaddon: "You will die as your weakling father died, soulless, honorless, weeping, ashamed." And with that, he died as he lived, unbroken. The cost of perfection. Sigismund became the perfect swordsman, not because of just talent, not because of destiny, but because he removed everything else. He purged all of the distraction, all of the comfort, all of the doubt, all of his hesitation. But also he purged his humanity, balance, and his own self. So the question isn't, is Sigismund inspiring? The real question is how much you can sacrifice to become something real. Sigismund died the way he lived, uncompromising, unyielding. He was entirely consumed by his purpose. But here's the uncomfortable part. Sigismund is just a character. He's a representation of pure, uncompromising direction, an uncomfortable purpose worth chasing. And he inspired generations of emperors champions who are reliving his ideals in each Black Templar's crusade among the stars. What Sigismund actually teaches us. Most people look at characters like Sigismund and think that's cool, but it's fiction. But it's not. Because what made Sigismund dangerous wasn't just the setting that he had to adapt to, it was his mindset. So let's make it more clear. Sigismund got rid of all of his distractions. He removed his doubt and he removed any other alternatives to follow. He did not have any plan B whatsoever. He had only the sword and his purpose. But look at what it cost him. His brotherhood with Karn, his identity beyond the war, and even the approval of his Jin father, Rogoldorn. He didn't just become powerful, he became empty. Perfection taken far enough stops looking human. And this is where it stopped being just a story for me. Because when you actually train with a longsword, you start to understand pieces of this. So how does it look realistically? It's you repeating the same drills over and over again. It's getting hit in bouts when you hesitate. It's realizing that thinking too much in a sword fight gets you punished, and also learning that improvement is consistent practice. It's not just motivation, and there's no pretending in training and fighting. Either your structure and technique holds or it breaks. The shift that you should consider. Most people stay here. What I mean is that they just consume. They just watch content. They are just consuming videos about sword fights. They are stuck in analyzing content for most of their precious time and thinking really that they understand something, thinking they are somewhat smart because of watching someone else do it. But the moment you pick up a sword yourself, you really start to grasp how ignorant you were. And I'm not Sigismund, but also I think that most of us should at least try to become that extreme, at least for just one season of our life, like a character's arc that needs to be finished. And I do understand one thing now. You don't get better by thinking about sword mastery. You get better by removing everything else which isn't it. Balance versus extremity. So Sigismund went all the way. He had no distractions. He had no hesitation. He had no life outside of war and sword. And that's why he became what he became. But in the real world, you have a choice. You can take that level of commitment without losing yourself entirely. But 99% of people will never know what it feels like to commit to something completely, like sword fighting. But if you ever do, just for a season, you'll understand exactly why Sigismund became unstoppable. The difference between watching mastery and becoming it is how much you're willing to give up. If you made it this far, my dear viewer, and you want to get deeper into finding out onto how to actually start practicing sword fighting yourself, then consider joining my free school community. The links in the description and the first pinned comment. And also consider joining my YouTube membership program called The Vanguard. And remember to subscribe to this channel and leave a comment on what you think about Sigismund. So yeah. And remember, always take the initiative.